Let's begin project again. Now we're in chapter 4 and we're going to begin our proposed grading project. So we're going to launch Bentley Power Civil again, and we're going to get into our design file to start our process, but this time we're going to enter into chapter 4. So I'm going to grab the design file out of chapter 4, same design file as before, siteplan2d.dgn. And this will be our base plan for our grading. Now I want to get back into my project, so I'm going to go ahead and launch Site Modeler. Again, the icon from the tool palette, or we can go to Civil pull-down menu and we have Modeler. That will bring up our project wizard where we will open an existing project. So I'll click the Browse button. I want to grab my site project out of chapter 4 called Site Plan GSF. And that opens up Site Modeler, and we now have our Modeler pull-down menu with all the available tools. So to get started, first thing we want to do is create a brand new object, and we're going to work on this building up in the northern section of our site. So I want to put in a building pad, a grass area around the building with a nice gentle slope coming off of the building, and that'll form our building area. So I'm going to create a brand new object. We have a new object tool from the site tools, or I can go to Modeler, Object, and New. This particular object type, I'll put it as a building object type, and we'll call this Building 1. And I will add it to the active model, our active model being Tower. So I'll click OK. And at this point, my active object that I'm working on, as displayed under my active site object control, is Building 1. Now it's time to create my first element, so I'll zoom in to the building area. And I'm going to create the building pad of this red building outline shape. We can do that through the Modeler pull-down, Modeler Elements, New Edit. Here are the tools available to create new site elements. We can also access this dialog from our Site tool palette. It's the upper right icon called Elements New Edit. But this will be the dialog we come to quite often to create new elements or edit existing site elements. We're going to go ahead and create a new site element, and in this particular one we're going to use the fourth icon over on the Element tab called Drape on Model Object. And what this tool allows us to do is kind of lay the building pad down on the surface at a particular elevation, but calculate the elevation based on the surface. So we're going to base our building pad elevation on the object called Ground 1. And I want to ensure that it's a little bit higher than ground in that area, so I'm going to offset it by 2 feet. So it's going to be 2 foot higher than ground. Now, I don't want the building pad to follow the ground. I want it to be a constant elevation, and I want it to use the elevation of the highest point, which happens to be in the lower right corner of the building pad area. So we have a drape option, and there are several of them. And in this particular case, I want to use the maximum elevation of that area. We also have minimum elevation, which would calculate the lowest point in that area of the red shape and use that as the building pad surface. Or we can do centroid, which would figure the elevation of the centroid of that shape and use that as the elevation for the surface. We also have entire element, which would allow the building pad to kind of follow the surface, kind of laying it down like a blanket on the ground. Or vertices, where it would only calculate elevation at each vertice of that shape and use those elevations, as well as endpoints. So maximum elevation So in our case, we want it 2 foot above ground at the highest point in that area. We'll make this a break line feature, and we're also going to toggle on Use Reference Element Association. That way that if we move the building pad to another area of ground, it will recalculate the elevation based on that ground surface or that area of the ground surface. I only have one element that represents the building, so I want to select that element, and I'm going to select a highlight color such as yellow so that we can see it highlight. So I will click the Select Elements button on my dialog. I will select the outline of the building, and notice that it is yellow, which matches the yellow highlight color, so I know that it's selected. Therefore, I can click Apply, and this will be added to my building object. As you'll notice, the side slopes are automatically computed because building side slopes were set to 3:1 or 4:1. Now the next thing I want to do is add my grass strip around the building. So I have a green element, or a series of green lines that represent the grass strip around the building. And I want to slope from the building to that green line at a 2%. So we're going to use another element tool called Slope Offset from Site Element. So back at our new Edit Site Element dialog, I'm going to switch to that tool, the first icon, and this will calculate the elevation of a new site element based on a previously defined site element at a slope or offset. In our case, we want to do a slope, so I'll toggle the slope option on. I'll set it to 2%, but minus 2%, because I want to slope down. I'll toggle off offset height. My projection option will be maximum elevation. And most importantly, I want to use reference element association. I would like that toggled on so that if I indeed were to raise the building, I would keep that 2% slope to the green line, so the green line would raise as well. I'm going to use Power Selector to select the green elements that represent that edge of the grass strip. So I'll select those. There's 3 of them, or 4 of them, I'm sorry. And the reference element, the element that the calculations will start from, that will be the building outline. I'll select that reference element, select the element, and then click Apply. And now you notice that we have a slope coming off of the building to that green line. That completes our building pad for now. The next step we'll take a look at is doing a road.